She touched his mind first, then took over his heart, completely. First contact protocol. The emergency klaxons screamed through the corridors of Prometheus 7 as Commander Zara Voss sprinted toward the command deck, her combat boots echoing against the metal grating. The orbital defense station shuddered under another wave of plasma bombardment, its shields flickering like dying embers. Through the reinforced viewports, she could see the alien fleet, sleek, organic-looking vessels that moved with an unsettling fluidity through the void. "Status report," Voss barked as she reached the command center, her platinum hair pulled back in a severe military bun that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. At 32, she had already earned a reputation as one of humanity's most brilliant tactical minds, her ice-blue eyes capable of calculating probabilities that computers missed. "Shields at 30% and falling, Commander," reported Sergeant Blake, his fingers dancing across the holographic displays. "The enemy is using some kind of adaptive weapon system. Every time we adjust our defensive frequencies, they counter within minutes." Voss studied the tactical readout, her mind racing. The alien ships weren't just attacking randomly. They were learning, evolving their strategy in real time. It was unlike anything in their military databases. These beings possessed an intelligence that made conventional warfare obsolete. "All units fall back to defensive pattern Omega," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Concentrate fire on their lead vessel. If we can disrupt their coordination," the words died in her throat as the lights suddenly dimmed. The background hum of the station's systems faded to an eerie silence, replaced by something else, a sound that seemed to resonate not through her ears, but directly inside her skull. It was melodic, haunting, and impossibly beautiful. "Hello, Zara." The voice materialized in her mind like morning mist, soft and intimate as a lover's whisper. Voss stumbled backward, her hand instinctively reaching for her sidearm. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work, oblivious to the intrusion in her thoughts. "Who? What are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I am Kithara. I have been watching you, studying your species through your memories, your dreams. You fascinate me, Commander." A figure began to materialize in the center of the command deck, translucent at first like a hologram but gradually gaining substance. It took the form of a woman, tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her features were perfectly symmetrical, almost ethereally beautiful yet distinctly alien. Her eyes were larger than human norm, colored like deep amethyst, and they held an ancient intelligence that made Voss feel like a child in comparison. "Visual contact with unknown entity on the bridge," Sergeant Blake shouted, raising his rifle. "Commander, get back!" But Voss couldn't move. Those mesmerizing eyes held her captive, and she felt something probing at the edges of her consciousness. Gentle at first, like fingers trailing through water, then more insistent. "Your soldiers cannot see me as you do," Kithara explained, her lips curving in a smile that was both maternal and predatory. "I exist in the space between thought and reality, but for you, I have chosen to be real." "Stay out of my head," Voss managed to say, though her voice lacked conviction. The alien's presence in her mind was strangely comforting, like coming home after a long journey. "But you are so alone, Zara. I can feel the weight you carry. All those lives depending on your decisions. All those deaths you blame yourself for. What if I told you there was another way? A path that would end this suffering for both our species?" Images flooded Voss's mind, not her own memories but visions of possibility. She saw Earth cities rebuilt, more beautiful than ever before. She saw humans and aliens working together, their technologies merged to create wonders beyond imagination. She saw herself standing at the center of it all, not as a military commander but as something greater. "Commander Voss!" Blake's voice seemed to come from very far away. "The enemy ships are moving into attack formation." Voss blinked, trying to focus on the tactical display, but Kithara's presence made concentration nearly impossible. The alien had somehow wrapped herself around Voss's thoughts like silk, making everything else seem distant and unimportant. "Your weapons cannot defeat us," Kithara continued, stepping closer. "We are beyond your understanding of warfare. But we do not wish to destroy you. We wish to elevate you to share our gifts. All we ask is that you stop fighting us and become your slaves." Voss forced herself to speak, though part of her was horrified to realize she was actually considering the offer. Not slaves, partners. We would give you knowledge beyond your wildest dreams, technology that would make you gods among mortals. You would still be human, but so much more. All you need to do is open yourself to me. Let me show you the truth. The alien's hand reached out, and Voss found herself leaning forward despite every instinct screaming at her to resist. Kythera's fingers were long and elegant, ending in what might have been nails or small crystalline formations. When they touched Voss's forehead, the world exploded into sensation. She was no longer on Prometheus 7. She was everywhere and nowhere, floating in a vast network of consciousness that connected billions of minds across the galaxy. She could feel Kythera's species, not invaders but explorers, seeking to understand and incorporate the unique perspectives of other life forms. They didn't want to conquer humanity. They wanted to become humanity, to add human creativity and passion to their collective experience. And at the center of it all was power, real power, the ability to shape reality itself through will alone. Voss saw herself wielding forces that could move planets. Her consciousness expanded beyond the limitations of flesh. She would be immortal, eternal, capable of protecting everyone she cared about forever. "This is what awaits you," Kythera whispered, in her mind. "This is what you could become. All you need to do is say yes." The vision shattered as someone grabbed Voss's shoulder, yanking her backward. She found herself staring into Sergeant Blake's concerned face, his rifle trained on the space where Kythera had been standing. But the alien was gone, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and flowers in the air. "Commander, are you all right? You've been standing there for 5 minutes not responding to anything." Voss shook her head, trying to clear the lingering effects of Kythera's mental touch. The bridge looked the same as before, but everything felt different now. The tactical displays showed the alien fleet holding position, no longer attacking. They were waiting. "I will give you time to consider my offer." Kythera's voice echoed in her mind, fainter now but still unmistakably present. "But do not take too long, dear Zara. Your people are dying, and I am the only one who can save them." "Commander?" Blake prompted. "Your orders?" Voss looked at the young sergeant, seeing him as if for the first time. He was barely 25, with a wife and newborn daughter back on Earth. Around the bridge, her crew watched her with absolute trust, believing she would find a way to save them all. The weight of their faith pressed down on her like a physical thing. What if Kythera was right? What if this was the only way to end the war, to save both species from mutual destruction? The alien had shown her wonders beyond imagination, a future where humanity could reach heights they had never dreamed possible. But at what cost? "Maintain defensive positions," she said finally, her voice hoarse, "and prepare for boarding actions. I have a feeling this isn't over." As her crew rushed to comply, Voss touched her forehead where Kythera's fingers had rested. She could still feel a faint tingling there, like an echo of the alien's presence. The entity had retreated, but she hadn't gone far. She was waiting, patient as a spider in her web, for Voss to make her choice. The question was, how long could she resist before the loneliness and responsibility finally broke her will? Outside the viewports, the alien ships hung motionless in space, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that looked almost like heartbeats. They were waiting too, confident in their eventual victory. And deep in her mind, Zara Voss felt the first hairline cracks forming in her mental defenses. The surrender protocol Lieutenant Jackson Reed had served under Commander Voss for 3 years, and he'd never seen her like this. She stood at the command center's main display, her usually sharp posture slightly hunched, fingers trembling as they traced patterns across the holographic interface. Her ice-blue eyes, once laser-focused on tactical data, now seemed to be looking at something no one else could see. "Commander," Reed approached cautiously, his dark skin gleaming with perspiration from the station's failing environmental systems. At 28, he was younger than Voss but had earned his position through unwavering loyalty and tactical brilliance. The alien fleet has been holding position for 6 hours. Admiral Torres is demanding a status report. Voss turned toward him, and Reed felt a chill run down his spine. Her eyes were the same color, but there was something different about them. A depth that hadn't been there before, as if she were seeing layers of reality invisible to everyone else. "Tell the Admiral we're negotiating," she said, her voice carrying an odd cadence as if she were listening to someone else while speaking. "Negotiating, ma'am? With respect, the aliens haven't responded to any of our communication attempts." A smile played at the corners of Voss's lips, but it wasn't her usual confident expression. This smile held secrets, promises of knowledge that felt dangerous to witness. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" Kythera's voice whispered through Voss's consciousness. "Your lieutenant, so devoted, so trusting. He would make an excellent addition to our collective." "No," Voss whispered, so quietly that Reed barely heard her. "Ma'am?" "Nothing, Lieutenant. Maintain current positions and prepare the senior staff for a briefing in 1 hour." Reed hesitated. Something was fundamentally wrong with his commander, but military protocol demanded he follow orders. "Should I include the department heads in this briefing?" "All of them," Voss confirmed, her gaze drifting back to the display showing the alien fleet. "Everyone who matters." As Reed left to carry out her orders, Voss closed her eyes and felt Kythera's presence wash over her like warm honey. The alien's consciousness had been growing stronger in her mind over the past hours, no longer just a visitor but becoming an integral part of her thoughts. "You're fighting so hard against something inevitable," Kythera murmured. "Look around you, Zara. Your station is failing, your people are exhausted, and your reinforcements are days away. How many more will die for your stubborn pride?" Through the neural link Kythera had established, Voss could feel the alien's emotions. Not malice or conquest lust, but genuine sadness for the unnecessary suffering. It was becoming harder to remember why she was resisting. "Because they're my people," she said aloud to the empty command center. "And they will remain your people. But they will be so much more. Watch." The vision that flooded Voss's mind was different. This time, not the grand cosmic collective she'd seen before, but something more intimate. She saw Lieutenant Reed, but transformed. His human form remained, yet his eyes held the same ancient wisdom she'd glimpsed in Kythera's. He was faster, stronger, his mind capable of processing information at superhuman speeds. Most importantly, he was happy, truly deeply content in ways that seemed impossible for unmodified humans. "This is what I offer," Kythera explained. "Not domination, but evolution. Your species has so much potential, but you're trapped by biological limitations. We can free you from aging, from disease, from the cognitive boundaries that prevent you from reaching your true potential." The vision expanded to show Sergeant Blake, his wife, his infant daughter, all transformed, all radiating the same sense of completeness. They were still recognizably human, but elevated beyond anything their species had achieved naturally. "And if they refuse?" Voss asked, though she already suspected the answer. Why would they refuse paradise? "But those who truly cannot adapt, we are not cruel, Zara. We simply help them find peace." An hour later, the senior staff assembled in the briefing room. Reed sat at Voss's right hand, while the other department heads, Engineering Chief Vasquez, Medical Officer Dr. Patel, Security Chief Morrison, and Communications Specialist Liu, arranged themselves around the oval table. The room felt smaller than usual, the walls seeming to press inward as if the station itself was holding its breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," Voss began, her voice carrying a new authority that made everyone sit straighter. "I've made contact with the alien force." "Charia," room erupted in surprised murmurs, but Voss raised a hand for silence. The gesture carried such command that everyone immediately complied, though Reed noticed something strange. For a moment her hand seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. "They call themselves the Synthesis," Voss continued. the words flowing from her lips as if she'd known them her entire life. "They're not here to conquer us, they're here to offer us a gift." "What kind of gift?" Dr. Patel asked, her scientific curiosity overriding military protocol. Voss's smile widened, and Reed felt that same chill from earlier. "Evolution. They can enhance us, physically, mentally, spiritually. We could become something greater than human while remaining fundamentally ourselves." "That sounds like assimilation," Morrison growled, his scarred face skeptical. "Like those old science fiction stories about hive minds." "Not a hive mind," Voss corrected, her voice taking on an almost hypnotic quality. "A symphony. Each of us would retain our individuality while contributing to something larger, more beautiful than we could achieve alone." Reed watched his commander speak and realized with growing horror that she was no longer entirely human. The way she moved, the subtle shift in her speech patterns, the otherworldly knowledge in her eyes. Something had changed her fundamentally. "She's one of them now," he thought, his hand slowly moving toward his sidearm. "Commander," he said carefully, "perhaps we should contact Admiral Torres before making any decisions about—" "The Admiral will understand once he experiences the gift himself," Voss interrupted, her eyes locking onto Reed's with an intensity that made him freeze. "As will all of you." The air in the briefing room began to shimmer, and Reed felt something pressing against his mind. Not violent or intrusive, but insistent, like a gentle hand trying to guide his thoughts. Around the table, the other officers blinked in confusion, as the same mental pressure touched them. "Don't fight it," a voice whispered in Reed's head. Not Voss's voice, but something alien and beautiful. "Let me show you wonders beyond your imagining." Reed gritted his teeth and forced himself to draw his weapon, the effort requiring more willpower than he'd ever mustered. "Commander, I'm placing you under arrest for... He couldn't finish the sentence. What was the charge for being transformed by an alien intelligence? How could military law address something so far beyond their experience? Voss looked at the weapon pointed at her chest with something approaching pity. "Oh, Jackson, you're going to make this so much more difficult than it needs to be." She raised her hand, and Reed felt his weapon grow impossibly heavy. His arm trembled with the effort of keeping it raised, and he watched in disbelief as frost began forming on the metal. "The neural pathways are so simple once you understand them," Voss explained conversationally. "Temperature regulation, motor, control, emotional responses, they're all just patterns of electrical activity. And patterns can be adjusted." Around the table, the other officers were struggling against their own transformations. Dr. Patel's eyes had begun to glow with the same inner light Reed had noticed in Voss, while Chief Vasquez was staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "It doesn't hurt," Vasquez said wonderingly. "I can feel everything, the station's power grid, the flow of data through the computer networks. It's like waking up from a dream I didn't know I was having." Reed forced himself to trigger his weapon, but the plasma bolt curved around Voss as if deflected by an invisible shield. She tisked disapprovingly. "Violence is such a primitive response to change. In a few minutes, you'll understand how unnecessary it was. Stop fighting." The alien voice in his head was stronger now, more insistent. "I can feel your pain, your loneliness. You don't have to carry these burdens alone anymore." And Reed could feel it. A vast, welcoming presence offering to share the weight of every difficult decision, every loss, every moment of doubt that had plagued him throughout his military career. The temptation was overwhelming. But then he thought of Earth, of the billions of people who had no idea their fate was being decided on a failing orbital station. They deserved the right to choose their own evolution, not have it forced upon them by beings who saw resistance as merely a technical problem to solve. With the last of his strength, Reed triggered the emergency beacon hidden in his uniform. If he was going to fall to this alien influence, at least Admiral Torres would know what had happened to Prometheus 7. Voss sensed his action and shook her head sadly. "The Admiral will thank you for this eventually. The entire fleet will undergo the same transformation within hours of our return. Earth will follow soon after. Humanity's childhood is ending, Jackson. It's time for us to take our place among the stars." As the alien presence finally overwhelmed his defenses, Reed's last coherent thought was a prayer that somewhere, somehow, someone would find a way to stop what was coming. The transformation of Lieutenant Jackson Reed was complete within minutes, his consciousness seamlessly integrated into the growing network that connected all of Cathara's chosen. He stood beside his commander, his queen, and felt nothing but gratitude for the gift he'd been given. "Prepare the ship for departure," Voss commanded, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies beyond human hearing. "Admiral, Torres is waiting for us." The synthesis fleet stirred to life around Prometheus 7, no longer invaders but escorts for humanity's triumphant return home.